Welcome to Furry Faced Finance, the show where we help young adults get a vision of what their future financial security can be. I'm JR.
And I'm Michael, and today we're talking about the importance of paying yourself first. And the reason that we're talking about that is because if you don't have a good, strong base to start, then that's going to add stresses down the line. So really, today we're talking about removing one of the stresses in your life, and then that'll make your future better.
Absolutely. And it's definitely the starting point, isn't it, Michael? If you don't pay yourself first, you've got no money to work with to build that financial security. Financial security is all about having enough money in the future to free you up to do the things you want to do rather than the things you have to do.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think the best part to start with is kind of the best gauge is the first 10% of your paycheck is to try to hit that first and foremost. And then that still leaves you 90% to care for all of your other financial needs that you may have, your bills that come along the way.
Yeah, that 10% mark it seems like a chunk when you're first trying it, but it really is not that big a deal. You will be surprised, and we've told this to people over and over again. You will be surprised how you will not miss that money. I know most of us are living paycheck to paycheck. That's understandable, but that money, once you discipline yourself to put it away, you really don't miss it.
Yeah, very true. And I mean, that's a big thing is that when you're first starting out, like I'm sure a lot of the audience is I mean, maybe you don't have the full 10% that you can put back out of your paycheck for different circumstances. Put what you can back, maybe 5%. Heck, I know I've started even at 1% just because, I'm a single income guy myself with a family of four. So I'm putting back what I can. It's not 10%, but it's still a base to get started and go ahead and practice that discipline. Because if you go ahead and start getting that foundation set, then when you do have the money and can do the 10%, you're already in that mindset of saving.
Right. And putting aside 10%, in this day and age is far easier than when I was young. I'm going to kind of age myself here because when I had my first checking account, my first savings account, there was no such thing as direct deposit. If I wanted to put 10% away, I had to physically write out the deposit slip. One part of my check goes into my checking account. One part of my check goes into my savings account. I had to physically do that. Today, all you have to do is go down to the nearest bank, sit down with one of the tellers, and say, I want to open two accounts. I want a checking account and I want a savings account. And that's how you get started. You go to your employer, ask them, how do I direct deposit my check into two different accounts? And most employers are doing direct deposit now, and you can set that up to do exactly that. Now, your employer may not be able to set aside a percentage. You may have to set aside a dollar amount, but you can do the calculation and just set that certain dollar amount to go into your savings account rather than your checking account. Then the money that hits your checking accounts, it's all the money you have to use for your budget, so to speak.
Yeah, true. And I know for me, with that direct deposit it's so huge because then you don't even have to see it. There's no visualizing of, oh, I have less. It's just, this is what my pay is and this is what I'm rolling with. And that's how I budget my monthly. So I think the direct deposit is a phenomenal idea. And I know that JR has actually turned me on to some people going back to the percentage is that, we were talking about maybe if you don't have the full 10%, then you can do 5% or even less. But there is this thing called FIRE, and JR can talk a little bit more about this, where people can save sometimes up to 30 to 70% of their check. You want to kind of give us a little bit more detail on that, JR?
Yeah, the fire community is like an entire community online. I don't necessarily buy into all of their principles, but it's a community of people online that are committed to financial independence. Retire early is what FIRE stands for, and they are putting aside 30+%. And in fact, I've heard one recently that they had put aside 75% of their income, which again, we're talking seems like a lot, but that my wife and I had discussed that when our kids were young, we decided we wanted to homeschool our kids, and so she didn't work a job. Well, we had discussed the option that when she was no longer teaching the kids and was able to get a full-time job, we just we would have been living on my income for so long that we could legitimately have put aside 100% of her income and still be living the same lifestyle we are living now. So, again, 30, 40, 50% of your income seems like a lot. But if you can do it, I mean, and it comes back to that freedom. It gives you the freedom to do what you want rather than what you have to do. So it's definitely something to consider, at least. I would think that my recommendation would be start with the 10% and then kind of ratchet it up. If you start saving 10% of your income, and you start seeing your savings grow, then you get a little excited, and honestly, and if you can ratchet up that number a little bit, maybe you pushed it up to 15% to 20%, it starts to give you a lot of options.
Yeah, that's very true. Because I mean, if you can save it, then that opens up that time, and then you can start exploring your passions. Because like right now, me and Jr. we're kind of working. I'm working a full-time job plus starting this podcast. I know Jr. is kind of documenting himself along the journey of paying some debt off while he's working a full-time job, a part-time job, in this podcast. So I mean, I think it's very exciting that we are starting to make these steps and actually implement these changes along the way ourselves, because we don't want to be just throwing stuff out to you guys that isn't kind of tried and tested. We want to be saying this is what we did and we know that it works, because we're wanting to help you take those stresses away from your future by being able to give you practical advice.
Right. And what we'll do in future episodes is we'll talk about how to start investing this money, even as a young adult. You don't have to be 30 years old with a family to start investing. You can invest right now, and we'll kind of document some ways to invest and grow this 10% that you're putting aside. But even if your 10% is just $200, even if you can put aside $200 a month, without taking interest into consideration, how compounding interest can make your money grow, even without taking that into account, you would have, over the course of from age 18 to 25, you'd have $16,800 in the bank. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind having $16,800 that I could do what I want with. So you in pretty short order as a young adult, you can get this launched and get started right and establish that financial security for the future. And we really believe in you. We believe that you can do this, and we're here to help.
Yeah, and we want to help you with every step of the way in this process. Like JR kind of gave a little bit of our future, and we want to keep doing this. So we want you to follow along with the journey. You can follow us on Instagram at Furry Faced Finance. You can DM us through there, or we also have a Snapchat at Furry Faced. You can send us a chat. We'll be happy to reach out with you to go over any questions that you might have, or just to chat with us in general. I mean, sometimes we just need a little encouragement, a pick me up, and kind of maybe some questions on how to get started and how to continue the discipline. We're here for that. Those tough days when you have a big purchase coming up, maybe you want that big TV, your brother got a new TV, but you're like, I don't know, I want it, but and you're kind of on the fence. Message us. We'll be happy to kind of talk you through it and see if maybe that is something you can afford. You've got to the point, or if you just need that encouragement of, hey, if you hold on, look what you can do further down the road.
Yeah, we love you guys, and we hope you have a great day.
Take care.